Hello, AP Environmental Science students. Today we're going to finish up Chapter 5, which is Biodiversity and Evolution. All of today's notes are based off of Living in the Environment, the 16th edition by Miller and Spoolman. So Chapter 5, Section 4 talks all about how communities and ecosystems respond to changing environmental conditions. The main idea here is that the structure and species composition of communities and ecosystems change in response to changing environmental conditions through a process called ecological succession. So what is ecological succession? Basically, it's the gradual change in species composition in a given area. There's two types of succession. The first is primary succession. This involves the gradual establishment of biotic communities in lifeless areas where there's no soil in terrestrial ecosystems or no bottom sediment in aquatic ecosystems. Basically, primary succession occurs where there is nothing. Maybe there was a lava flow or glaciers receded. So basically, we have bare rock. The first thing that's going to happen is we have pioneer or early successional species that come in. These include things like lichens and mosses that are going to attach to this weathered rock and lead to soil formation. It gets in there, it breaks up the rock and basically weathers it away to our soil. Once we actually have some soil established, our mid-successional species are going to come in. So these are things like herbs, grasses, low shrubs, and then eventually some larger trees. They actually have a soil to take root in, so they are going to come next. Finally, we have late successional species, which are mostly our larger trees and organisms that can tolerate shade. My second type of succession is secondary succession, and this is where we have a series of communities or ecosystems with different species that develop in places containing soil or bottom sediment. This includes things like abandoned farmland, burned or cut down forests, flooded land, or heavily polluted streams. So if we compare our two types of succession, primary is on the top here, so you can see it starts with nothing. It's just bare and exposed rock. We have those lichens and mosses, those pioneer species come in, our small herbs and grasses, some trees starting to come in, and eventually we get to our very mature trees that can tolerate shade. Secondary succession, we already have some soil, we already have some sort of weeds going on, and then again, my species get bigger and bigger and bigger as time goes on. So according to our traditional view, succession proceeds in an orderly sequence with a long and expected path until we get this stable climax community. This climax community is dominated by a few long-lived plant species, and when we have this balance of nature, or it's in balance with the environment, that's when it's done. However, my current view is that we can't really predict how this is going to go. And we can't view it as this preordained sort of progress towards this ideal community. It's always going to be changing. All living systems are dynamic. Like I said, things are constantly changing. So in our minds, we think of stability in nature as a capacity to withstand external stress and disturbance. Not that things are not changing, but just that they're able to respond positively when something changes. Inertia or persistence is the ability of that system to actually survive those moderate disturbances, and resilience is the ability of a system to be restored through secondary succession after that moderate disturbance. Sometimes, however, ecosystems and living systems can't come back. They have no resilience because they've passed this tipping point. And a tipping point is just a threshold level at which an environmental problem causes a fundamental and irreversible shift in the behavior of a system. So once you cross a tipping point, there's no going back to the original system.